with Shannon live. It's Shannon. Because you don't know how it's going to turn out.
My kids empowered me to get out.
What's going on with this remote learning and in the midst of COVID?
Working for different elected officials, learning and understanding how to put the community first.
Hi, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. We are so sorry for the delay, but as you know, with this technology, we was having a little difficulty, but we are here and we are ready to get started. And as you know, it's Women's History Month. So we have a special young lady coming on tonight to talk about our topic, Dementia. And we also have another guest that's going to be joining her. But let's introduce her first, Miss Vanessa.
Absolutely. Our guest tonight is Miss Marcia Henne. She's a caring, kind, the heart of Alzheimer's caregiving. She's a program director with expertise in crafting and executing organizational strategies. Her profound knowledge and expertise stem from her personal journey as a caregiver to her mother who battled Alzheimer's disease. Welcome, Ms. Marcia, to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Hello, Ms.
Well,
Shannon.
it's wonderful to start Women's History Month off with you joining us tonight to talk about this important topic.
Thank you. We definitely have
and so our next guest.
Our next guest tonight is Mr. Jim Taylor. He's from Memory Advocate Peers, which is also called MAP. He has an MBA from the University of Chicago. His wife, Jerry, was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment back in 2012 and was later clarified as Alzheimer's disease. So Jen and Jerry, they have spoken to more than 15,000 individuals across the U.S. and Europe addressing stigmas about Alzheimer's and how to live with Alzheimer's disease. And in 2022, he was the president and CEO of Voices of Alzheimer's, which is an advocate organization, and their mission is to promote speedy and equitable access to FDA-approved diagnosis and therapeutic for Alzheimer's disease. Let's welcome Mr. Taylor to the show.
Hello there, Jim. How are you?
I'm good, Lottie. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
Because the topic there mentioned what to expect. As you know, we know it's on the rise and it's happening to so many people, and we really don't know, how is it taking place and where it's coming from. So tonight we want to shed some light on it, and we want to first kind of start with the signs. So what's the signs of dementia?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, and yeah, there you go. You brought up a great image. These are some of the signs that we want to keep in mind, especially for like early detection. Oftentimes, Alzheimer's and dementia is known for memory loss, but there are so many other symptoms, like, for example, difficulty performing familiar tasks and poor or decreased judgment, problems with language, finding the right words, some disorientation to time and place, oftentimes maybe not knowing exactly where they are or what time of day it is. Problems with, tracking back of things, misplacing. Oftentimes we all think we're misplacing things, but this happens more repetitively with persons with these specific symptoms. And of course, changes in mood and behavior, withdrawal from larger gatherings, from work, from social aspects. These are a lot of the signs that we want to keep an eye out for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but normally most of us, as soon as we stop remembering something, like if I go in the other room and I can't remember why I'm in that room, or, okay, so who was I calling? Now I can't remember who I'm calling. So we all get nervous about, is this something happening or going on, or this is more geared to the old age syndrome? Because the ones that you was talking about, we can really see, you can see now that's really a problem with that person.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, again, as you said, oftentimes we find ourselves wondering, wait, am I getting, am I becoming more forgetful? Is there memory loss? Especially if you've had it in your family already, you immediately start thinking, do I have Alzheimer's? Of course, a lot of this is, sometimes we're multitasking. Maybe we have a lot going on in our day. But if we find, or if our family is telling us that they're seeing some of these symptoms more and more repetitively, that's what we want to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
Jim,
should we go?
I know
Should we take them
sometimes
to the doctor?
I'm sorry?
Okay, so if we see those signs, should we take them to the doctor to get some kind of? Is there any kind of test or anything that they do to really actually say that they have dementia or Alzheimer's?
Absolutely. Jim, would you like to take this?
Sure. Lottie, it's really remarkable what's happening to the science of Alzheimer's. Not only do we have FDA approved drugs that slow the decline of Alzheimer's, but there are better and better tests and diagnostics that will help identify cognitive issues. So the first thing that happens is you should have a screening. And the reason it's so important to go early is that about 25 to 30% of issues with cognitive impairment may be reversible. So there's many causes, vitamin deficiencies and other things that have symptoms that are like Alzheimer's or other dementias, but they are reversible. So it's important now. And there's new cognitive tests that you can take on a digital platform, an iPad or your phone. And in 10 minutes, they can do a cognitive screening using artificial intelligence, of course, and determine whether or not there may be some cognitive issues.
So Jim, what was some of the signs with your wife? Because we know, she has dementia. So what did you see? What was the change in her personality and everything that you knew there was something wrong and something was going on?
That's a great question too, because my wife was a nurse and she was she's a trained observer, as nurses and medical professionals are. And it was she who noticed the signs much faster than I did. I really didn't know that there was anything wrong with her memory, but she knew it, and she had a family history. She lost her train of thought a couple of times in meetings. She was a healthcare professional. She couldn't figure out how to get the blinds up and down, something she'd done for a decade, and it suddenly became a challenge for her. And finally, what's an unusual early sign is that she didn't recognize her own face in the mirror one day. And at that point, we went to see a neurologist who diagnosed mild cognitive impairment.
Yeah.
And when she was diagnosed, Lottie, there were no medications that were approved by the FDA that could slow the disease. The very exciting things for us in this community now is the FDA has approved one new drug and another one expected shortly that will actually add an additional year or two in the mild stages of the disease rather than advancing more quickly.
This is the importance of really early detection. And so looking out for those signs that we were just speaking of is so vital, right? And so sometimes it's important to keep a journal if you feel like you're beginning to maybe possibly, forget things, writing things down. And the same thing for your family members, them kind of letting you know. And then some of the actions that you want to do is obviously, yes, go to the doctor. You want to, speak to your PCP, your primary care physician. Or if you have already a neurologist that you've been speaking to, you want to let them know about your symptoms. You want to let them know about the frequency that you're noticing some of these symptoms. You want to tell your family. You want to make sure that you're sharing. And generally, as we said before, it's something that you kind of want to probably hide, but we want to make sure that we're not doing that. That's naturally, unfortunately, what creates the stigma that has been around for so long.
Sometimes people people associate Alzheimer's with elderly, much older individuals, but lately Alzheimer's has been really being identified in younger people. So I think that's some of the misconception as well when people are not getting treatment or even looking to think that it's something that can be associated with Alzheimer's when they have cognitive decline. So what are some of the things that the younger people out of that generation should be looking for?
I think this is that question of if the symptoms are the same, I think, for early detection. About 5% of the total number of people in the US, which is about 6 million in total, Vanessa, are early onset or early detections, but earlier than 65. And one of the reasons that you hear about it more and more is we are identifying the disease earlier and earlier, which is a very good thing because there are now proven things that can be done to delay the advance of the disease. And those things include a healthy lifestyle, with not smoking, good healthy diet, and exercise. And also treatments can be done earlier when the early diagnosis is received. We unfortunately know that African Americans and Hispanics are usually diagnosed later in the stage of the disease. And one of our big desires is to include all people in clinical trials so we can be sure that we can be certain that the new drugs that are being approved work for minorities as well as whites like myself. And so there's a great emphasis now in the pharmaceutical companies in recruiting people into these trials.
But Jim, does it really show that medicine really works?
It has been shown, Lottie, but there were not enough African Americans in that to make me or many other people comfortable that we can say assuredly that yes, it works for all people. We can't say.
Well, that's part of the historical component of why people of color, particularly African American people, individuals, do not participate in studies and research. So that's an ongoing issue.
It's a
lack of trust issue.
It's a blight on our history, and it is a lack of trust. Absolutely. And we must do everything we can to help overcome that. And we must come into your community and ask you what we can do to help you, what we can do to bring facts and education so that we can help overcome that very huge stain on research in the United States.
I understand the research, and you want to do the research and the studies and things like that, but there's really not a cure for dementia or Alzheimer's, is it?
There is not. But it's very, very exciting time because we now have one drug, and now they're starting to talk about combinations of different medications. Like in AIDS, you have a cocktail, and I don't mean the one you have at 6 o'clock, Lottie. I mean the one that we have that's a combination of different drugs, and that there's real hope that this cocktail in maybe 5 years will be able to stop the advance of the disease. And now there are actually some vaccines that are being very early testing.
Well, see, that's the whole problem. That's the whole issue that I worry about. Like, where did this come from? How did this start to become such a disease like it is? Because you never heard about people having dementia or Alzheimer's like you are hearing it now. It's like every time you talk to someone, it's at least one or two people in the family. I mean, I've had them in my family too. And I often learn well, how did this happen? Because you never heard about dementia or Alzheimer's before. So, I mean, have the studies show that is it coming from, like you said, our diet, the food we eat? I mean, I know they put everything on the food and stuff, but I mean, if we don't eat, then what's going to happen?
Lottie, I think it's always been here. I think we called it hardening of the arteries, and we hid it for as long as possible. For a lot of people died, and I don't think society ever knew that they had dementia. Mm-hmm. And now there's not such a stigma because we can begin to deal with it and have actions that can help slow the progression. So I don't think the incidence has increased. It's just that we are more willing as a society to acknowledge it and deal with it. It's extremely slow. It's a remarkable disease. My wife was diagnosed 12 years ago, and she was living at home with me. I was their only carer up till until a few months ago. And it progresses very, very slowly over that time. And that's why we need to really incorporate as many people with the disease into our society as we can. And I know you're interested in that too, but how we are inclusive of people, because they're just forgetful in the early stages. But what's happening now is the science is identifying earlier and earlier that people have some symptoms of the disease. But the remarkable thing is the amyloid, that the protein, this disease can be diagnosed 20 years before the symptoms are visible. So now
really?
Jerry was diagnosed at 65. My wife, she's probably started having some signs in her brain that could now be identified 20 years when she was probably 45. So that's how far the science has come. And that's why I think we're so much more aware of Alzheimer's. And you're absolutely right. So many people have been touched by the disease, either in their families or in their friends and relations.
Well, one of my other concerns is, and a lot of people have asked me, to make sure you talk about this, is how do you deal with the loved one that's in this situation? Because you can't deal with them like you deal with everyone else, right? Because I remember when I had to deal with my aunt now, and because when you don't know about it, you don't know. Like, you sitting there talking to them, and they keep asking you the same thing over and over, and then you turn around and look at them like, "Excuse me, don't you know you just asked me that you know what I'm saying?" Because you don't know, you just sitting there talking to them, and then you start thinking like, "What is going on here? Is something going on?" And then you can't talk to them the same way, and you can't deal with them the same way. So how do you, deal with a loved one that has dementia or Alzheimer's?
That's.
But Jen, before you answer, Lottie, could we take a break so we can kind of get the conversation going? And
okay, then. So we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Hi, we're back, and if you're joining us, we'll talk about dementia, what to expect, and our special guest is Marcia and Jim. And before we went to break, Vanessa, you was asking Jim a question? Or was I asking a question? That's what it was. I was asking Jim, like, how do you deal with a loved one?
That commercial was so good, I forgot.
You see what happened that quick, Jim? Something happened when I went to commercial.
You guys have too much fun on this program. I don't, it's not serious.
This is a lot of fun.
It's how we interact with people with dementia. And you were mentioning the situation where they keep asking you the same question over and over. Well, that's typical in the moderate to late stage, that people forget the immediate recent past. But before that, let's talk about that before just a little bit. When you know people start showing signs of dementia and you're acting with them before, it's maybe 10 years before they start repeating themselves. And during that time, it's very, very important to include those people in all your social activities and treat them just like you'd always have. But don't ask them too many questions at once. A lot of times they can only remember one thing at a time. So don't stack all your questions up, but can include them, touch them, treat them just like you have always treated them, as part of your family, as someone you love, as someone you care about. It's so much, this is a difficult disease, and to reassure them psychologically is so important, that they still retain their self-worth, their self-value. That's one of the most precious gifts we can give people that we interact with Alzheimer's. Once they become more forgetful and don't remember and keep asking you the same question over and later, then they are more in the late stage. They are more reaching the more challenging time in the disease. And it's very important to ask them one question at a time, to touch them, to let them know that you love them and that you care for them just as much as you always have. Hug them when you can. Don't try to help them too much, because then you take away their self-worth. Make sure they want that assistance before you give it to them. That's something that, care partners are very bad at. We're kind of big helicopter care partners, and we want to, but everything we do for them that they could do for themselves takes away from their dignity and diminishes their self-worth. And that's the opposite of what we want to do. We want them to feel as good about themselves for as long as possible.
That's important, because a lot of individuals, they don't have patience when they deal with loved ones. They may not know that they're going through dementia. They're like, didn't you understand me? Did you hear me? I said it again. You keep saying. They don't have the patience. So that adds more to the trauma, the internal trauma that they're inflicting, the emotional component to it. And sometimes it's good to kind of ascertain what are the best strategies to kind of help families who may not know it's Alzheimer's, but come to the reality that this person is changing. Okay, they may not know they're repeating themselves, right? And it's like you have to have patience, you have to understand, and people really don't have that these days, especially if you have a young individual caring for older grandparents.
I think that's an excellent point. Excellent point. I think we always talk about being the burden of caregiving, but there's also an opportunity for self-growth here. I was not a very patient person, Vanessa. And I realized that my impatience was not only hurting me, but it was hurting the person I dearly loved. So being a caregiver is an opportunity for personal growth. We can become more patient. We can become more loving. We can become more caring. And we can really get a much better handle on what's important to me. We can let so many things go that really aren't that important. I don't have to be right all the time. I learned to give that up. That was a big thing for me in personal growth.
Thank you.
I think it's important to also add that with everything that Jim just said, we want to make sure that we're inclusive of them, that we're making sure that we're allowing them their independence. But as the disease progresses, it is indeed very, very frustrating. It can be very, tiring and really honestly just heart-wrenching to see, our loved ones be repetitive or maybe not remember some things that they knew very easily. And for that, I would honestly say Caring Kind is an organization that provides education to caregivers, that helps them to understand exactly what it is, this journey, what it's going to look like, and how to best prepare. We're in Midtown Manhattan, but all our services are virtual right now as well. All it is calling the helpline in order to be able to, get an answer that maybe you don't know anything about. If you're looking for, some assistance in, possibly a challenging behavior. My mom wants to go home. She's constantly saying that she wants to go home, but she is home. I don't know what to do. So Caring Kind has social workers and dementia specialists that are there to help you in the helpline, and also in so many different seminars that we provide, from education to legal and financial planning to early stage programming, like our program, Memory Advocate Peers, which is a buddy program that provides you a former caregiver, a volunteer, to help guide the person with dementia and the caregiver in the beginning stages of their journey, which can be so difficult and so isolating. So we want to be there to help you. All our programs and services are free of charge. I'd be happy to have the number actually, you guys just posted it, our number, because, we are like the New York City's leading expert in dementia care, and we want to be your trusted partner. Please call the helpline if you have any further questions about dementia or about your family member that may be displaying some form of forgetfulness or, actually memory loss.
Marcia, that's a good point that you just made, and I would say that to any member of the audience that might be watching. It's a good idea for you to go and take a workshop or something and how to deal with that loved one, because you really, first of all, you have to pray for your patience, because this is what you have to have. Number one is the patience.
Mhm.
Because if you're not, then it becomes an issue. But when you go and you learn about the disease, how it affects them, and then how to deal with that person and how to talk to them, because I also learned too that sometimes you just go along with what they're saying and what they're doing, because even if they say something and you know it's not true or it's not happening, you may go along with the program of what they're saying just to say, oh, really? That's what you see? This is what you're doing? You know, and you just go along with that with them, and it makes it much easier, because sometimes, you know, it was like, I remember when I was with my aunt, I'm sitting in the nursing home with her, right? And so I know when things happen, so I had to go find out what to do and everything, because, you know, I was the one who was having to see about it. And I will never forget the day that we was in the room and we was looking at TV. The man was telling the news on the TV, right? And she looks at me and says, oh, he's talking about me on the TV. And I said, talking about you on the TV? I was like, huh? And so she said, yeah, don't you hear what he's saying? And I said, well, yeah, I heard the man, but I don't remember him calling me stupid, right? I'm like, really? And I said, oh, maybe they got cameras in the room. This is what I was thinking, you know, because I'm not thinking anything. I said, maybe they got cameras in the room.
That was a good recovery.
Exactly.
That was great.
I called it up to the window to the supervisor. I said, y'all don't have no cameras in the patient's room, do y'all? And she was like, no. I was like, oh my God, thank you. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, oh, so she actually thinks someone is talking about her.
They speak with so much conviction that you kind of
right. And so I turned around and said to her, I said, yeah, they was talking about you. Yeah, they were talking about you. And they were saying such good things about you, you know, on the TV. I went along with the program because this way.
And Miss Shannon, you know what you were doing there, right? You were actually validating them. You were completely validating your aunt and providing her that comfort that you weren't going against her. So props to you.
Well, see, that's where I learned that after I went and took the workshop and everything how to deal with it. Because at first, when it was happening, I was like getting frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about? You know,
but you know what, Lottie, we have so much we could talk about. You know, are we going to have an after show? Because people need to stand by.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
This is too much fun.
So we're going to come back and finish talking to Marcia and Jim, because we have more questions to ask them. So we want to thank you for joining us for this part of the show. And I hope you got something out of it if you have a loved one that does have dementia. So remember, look at us on every Saturday at 5:30 p.m. on Brick Arts Media and 2:30 on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Make sure you go and subscribe to our YouTube page and like our Facebook page. So thank you so much, Marcia and Jim, for coming for this part of the show. And thank you for joining us today. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
Would you like beautiful pictures for your home or your office? Then stop by Faith Art Gallery. They have a large selection of pictures from around the world.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. Keeping it real. Keeping it real.
Hi, I hope you stuck around for our after show. We are talking to Marcia and Jim about dementia. In the first part of the show, we was talking about, we ended the show with how do we, you know, support our loved ones. And it's important to go and get, you know, learn how to work with the loved ones. So this way you can make them feel comfortable and make them feel better about themselves and stuff. So I was talking about my experience, you know, with my aunt and stuff. But Jim, I wanted to ask you, like, now, how do you you know, do things with your wife? Is she at the point now that she still not understand anything, or she does, or what?
We've actually, Lottie, partnered for 12 years since she was diagnosed with a real dedication to advocacy. And it's been such a wonderful journey for us because we've learned that when you're concerned about something more than yourselves, as the two of you obviously are with this show, and trying to educate and help people with their journey, that it's a very bonding and wonderful opportunity for you to have a richer world, even as my wife was declining with Alzheimer's. But just a few months ago, because of her behavior became very different, and she was very aggressive, verbally abusive, and I couldn't take care of her any longer. And I knew that having an aide in the home would also not be able to manage her behavior. So I was able to find a memory care unit where she's living now. I visit every day, and she knows me. And we have a wonderful time together. I take picture albums. I go back and read our old Christmas cards. Whenever the weather's good enough, we go out and take a 45-minute walk outside. So I always try to find activities that really make her very happy, and she still likes being with me, which is really wonderful and very rewarding for me.
But I want to just add that's very important, right? When the family members can identify when they can no longer care for the individual.
Yes.
And I know it's a hard decision to make, to put your loved one away. And people should think unselfishness that you're not putting them away, that you're putting them in a better place where someone can care for them.
Yeah.
And it's very important for them to continue in their lives and be a part of them, because that was keep them going for however long it is. That keeps them sanity.
That's so well said.
Yeah.
I'd always thought I'd be able to keep Jerry at home and have aides come in and help, but we couldn't manage her behavior, and we had to manage her. They've now got much better medications, and that had to be managed and changed frequently. So it was heartbreaking, I think, for both of us that we had to do this. And she was very angry for months. She's now forgiven me, and I think she knows, but it doesn't make it any easier. And whom I really feel the sorriest for is, what if I couldn't afford to put her in a memory care unit? What about the people who are below the poverty? They can't afford a place like this. And, we are lucky in New York and Connecticut to have Medicaid that helps with a lot of these situations. But people in other states don't have such rich Medicaid benefits. How do they manage a situation which I couldn't manage? It really makes me much more empathetic for folks who really are struggling with this disease and challenged financially.
Well, see, that's why it's important that we set that up at a earlier stage, just in case something does happen to us, because we don't realize how important it is for us to do that at an early stage. Take out something where something happened to you, you can put them in a decent place to get the care that they need. Because like Vanessa said, you're not trying to put them away somewhere that you're gonna leave them, but somewhere where they'll be taken care of, because we can't take care of them. Like with my aunt, I can't lift her. I couldn't lift her.
Right.
So that's why she had to go in the nursing home. We didn't want to put her in the nursing home, but she was a big lady, like me. So you can't be lifting her around and stuff, So it got to be, it was too much. It was too much.
I hope she had your great spirit, because I think she probably did as well. And, I think about too, I was blessed to have a wife that we had a wonderful relationship before she was diagnosed. I also think, what about the folks? Not everybody has a wonderful marriage, And how much harder it would be to care for somebody, you really don't feel that bonded to. So I do think a lot of challenges in taking care of people, and we don't always understand what those are. One of the reasons we started the MAP program, I'd like to just talk about for a minute. We talked about trust in the African American community. What we want to do is find individuals who were care partners who've lost the person they were caring for, who we train. Marcia trains in a 25-hour training course. And then for a year, they are a guide, a friend, a teacher for the first year of newly diagnosed individuals with the disease, because when you're initially diagnosed, you're lost. You don't know what to do. It's a new world. You're emotionally bereaved. It's terribly difficult to get that diagnosis. But what we want to do is come in with someone who's walked in those shoes, who looks like you do, who you can trust, who shares your journey, listens to your pain, and has their own and knows how to be empathetic.
Right.
And then this guide will also educate you about the community resources and talk to you about handling different situations, and really talk to you about some of the science and see if you want to consider being in a trial. So that's our goal, is to, you pointed it out right away. We don't have trust in research in many in our minority communities, and we have to rebuild that. And the only way we can rebuild that is being out there, being aware, being able to offer ourselves to help and regain that trust.
So, Marcia, you have workshops where I know you do workshops on the outside, but do you have workshops at the center there, or your workshops are mostly on the outside? So, if someone wants to come and take a training, it's since they have a loved one, that they want to take a training, so this way they know how to deal with the loved one.
Oh, absolutely. We are in Midtown Manhattan. We're on Lexington between 40th and 41st. And we have services at our offices as well. From support groups, like I said before, to education. And most of our, in our Memory Advocate Peers program, our mentors are also meeting in person with their, with the person that they're paired with and their care partner. Sometimes at our offices as well. We have a lot of events there so that people can get together and they can feel the unity. It's important to feel that support and to know, that we can all grow together. I also wanted to just kind of mention, this is a disease that unfortunately we often think it's solely and exclusively for the aging. And, I in the last, several outreach events that we have had and that I've provided in Brooklyn specifically in the last couple of months, I've come across so many people that have told me, I was caring for my grandmother or my mother. And these are young adults in their early 20s. I have somebody in my program right now, in my program, who is a mentor to a dyad, to a couple. And she was a caregiver, at 17 years old. And she was not able to go to her prom because she was caring for her grandmother and mother. So these are stories that we hear, repeatedly. And it's so important to kind of now make sure that if we're being so inclusive to bring all this education and information to you, we're asking you, tell us what you need. But this is exactly also what we want to do, is reach out to the youth and make sure that they too are being supported, because so many of them feel that, well, this is just what I have to do culturally. For us Latinos and for African Americans, we do it because that's what we're supposed to be doing. But by the same token, we don't really know. We don't have that education in caring for somebody with Alzheimer's and dementia. So we want to make sure that, that everybody is feeling supported.
So, Marcia, clarification. Now, you said something about a mentor. So you have someone that mentors the person who's taking care of the loved one? I'm trying to understand the mentor that you were talking about.
Absolutely, Ms. Shannon. So what that mentor is kind of like a buddy. It's kind of like a guide, what Jim was saying earlier. And that's a former caregiver, somebody who has already cared for their loved one and has come to us with so many skills, so much learned and lived experience. And so they come to us and they say, I would love to volunteer and give back. And that's the person that goes to training. And then we pair them for a year with a person with dementia and their care partner.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's good. Because I hadn't heard, I didn't hear about that before, about, someone could get a mentor. Because, sometimes you just need someone to talk to, if nothing else.
Exactly. Lottie, when my wife was diagnosed, she was expecting the diagnosis. She'd seen the signs, it was in her family. She took it emotionally quite well. I was devastated. I really just was crushed and went through several weeks of just, the stages of grief. And it would have been so wonderful that first 6 months to have somebody to talk to who'd been through the same experience. Would have meant so much to my psychological well-being. And the program is for both the care partner and the person who's been diagnosed with dementia.
Okay, then. So they would just call the office. So they would just call the office and come to maybe one of your trainings or your workshops or something like that, and then you could pair them, with someone there, or
Yeah, I mean, they can definitely
say they want somebody.
Absolutely. They can definitely call the office and speak to me or call the helpline. And then we would go ahead and kind of start the conversations to just learn a little bit more about them. And absolutely, if there's somebody that they are no longer actively caring for their loved one and they want to help, that's the person we're looking for.
You should just qualify, though, that these people need to be diagnosed. This wouldn't be a first step. This would be after the physician had indicated that you did have dementia.
And that's, of course, for the Memory Advocate Peers program for MAP. And just to be able to, attain a mentor. But for any of the other programs, they can certainly call the helpline and they can be helped after that, and then kind of given a little bit more of direction at that point.
So let me just ask the question, because like I say, sometimes, you be wondering stuff or whatever, but if you find yourself, not just forgetting things, because we all do stuff like that, but if we find ourselves maybe looking like we might be, if we're talking and sometimes we can't remember what we were saying or something like that, or other things may come up that we'll say, oh, well, you know what, something is not right here. Should we go get ourselves tested?
I absolutely. I think as soon as you can, to go to your GP, your general practitioner, they will talk to you, and if they feel, perhaps give you a screening test. But if they think that there's a real sign that you may have cognitive impairment, they will probably send you to a neurologist for a diagnosis. There have been so many advances in the field. I just, the time Jerry was diagnosed to today, I was just at a conference for 3 days in New Orleans last week, hearing all about the latest science. It is so exciting. I just wish I could communicate everything that I heard to the whole, the whole community. So there's so much hope. There's no longer a discussion about, well, if we're going to have these advances. It's now at how soon will we have the next breakthrough. So it's an extremely hopeful science, and much, much different than it was when my wife was diagnosed 12 years ago.
Are there any means that this may be genetic? Are there particular markers that they can be tested for earlier?
Absolutely. There is a particular gene. It's called an APOE gene. And there's a bad version. If you get the bad version from one parent, then you're 3 times more likely than average. If you get that bad gene from both parents, like my wife did, only 2% of the general population. But if you get both bad genes, then you're 12 times more likely than average to develop Alzheimer's. And a simple blood test, if you want to know, can tell you while you're still healthy whether or not you have those genes.
I'm sorry, Jim, not cut you off. Are you saying, like, if one of your parents might have had dementia, or both of them had dementia, then there's a possibility that you could be getting dementia? Well, I don't understand what you said about the gene thing.
Okay, so
higher probability.
Your parents might not even have had the disease, but they might have carried a bad gene.
Carrier.
Oh, okay.
So if they pass you the bad gene, if you just one of your parents does, then you're 3 times more likely than average to develop Alzheimer's.
Oh,
if both parents have it in their family and pass you the bad gene, then you're 12 times more likely. My wife's sister and brother are fine, but she got the bad gene from both parents. And she knows that her son has at least one bad gene and possibly her granddaughter. So they are more likely to develop the disease. But what you can do, even at any age, is have a simple blood test and ask for an APOE genetic testing, and they can tell you whether or not you're inclined to develop the disease, which is a wonderful breakthrough for us if you want to know. Many people don't want to know.
But the downside of that is that insurance may not pay for it. If there's no reason for doctors to kind of look to rule it out, you would have to pay out of pocket for that.
You can get it for as little as $200, but you're right. It's something that my organization is working on to try to get covered, and I think that will happen soon.
Do you actually believe? Not actually believe, but is there anything really have shown that the diet could cause you to have dementia? Is that really something that we need?
It does not cause you to have dementia.
I just wanted to know so I know I can keep eating my good food. That's why I want to know.
You can keep eating all those potato chips, but it may, an unhealthy lifestyle, Lottie, probably, if you're going to have dementia, it may cause it to onset earlier. If you live a healthier lifestyle, you are likely to delay the onset of symptoms.
Okay.
I'm not a physician. I'm not a scientist. This is just what I've learned in my 12 years. But I've learned a lot.
But sometimes that same unhealthy lifestyle add to the mutation of genes that we have. And with all the chemicals and unknown byproducts that they have in the things that we do ingest, these are all disruptors, right? And they could be disruptors to our genes, to cells, and they can mutate and cause other things to develop.
I mean, we definitely encourage, obviously, a healthy lifestyle, with healthy, like, nutrition, exercise. Sleep is a very, very big thing, making sure that you're sleeping 7 to 8 hours. And absolutely, I think what Jim had mentioned before, smoking and alcohol consumption and these things, we want to make sure, of course, and we're going to encourage, to have this healthy lifestyle, because these things, of course, cause, cardiovascular issues, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes. These are all, kind of risk factors that are going to, possibly increase, the risk for you to get Alzheimer's. And especially, for the African-American, communities, the stress level, for Latinos, obesity, these are issues that we want to make sure that we are paying attention to and that we're, kind of encouraging a healthy lifestyle.
Well, we're going to have to bring this to a close, but I'm glad you mentioned about the sleep, if that's that important, because I mean, I know I don't get enough sleep because most of the time, sometimes I'm up to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I know I'm not getting the proper sleep like I need. So that's why when you said that, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to have to start going to bed early now rather than staying up so late. Because that's me. I'm always up late all the time. And so I don't sleep hardly during the night.
There's one other surprising thing that they have shown in trials that increases the likelihood of the disease is hearing loss in mid-age and not getting hearing aids. And they have shown that not only does your partner not hear you, but that this increases the likelihood and the earlier onset.
But before we close out, are these retro studies, and how many participants are normally
thousands? They're large studies, and I don't want to leave. I want to come back. This is too much fun.
Absolutely.
But definitely we're going to have definitely not all seriousness aside, but all joking aside, but no, I definitely want you all to come back, because you know why? Because this is I mean, like I said, I'm meeting everybody now that I'm talking to. Somebody in the family has this dementia and stuff, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. It's like when people just kept saying to me, make sure they tell me how should I work with my loved one, because they don't really know what to do. And because they're not upset, but they're scared because they see these things happening to the loved one, but they hasn't been diagnosed as dementia.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just see this behavior start to come on. You know what I'm saying?
Research shows that Alzheimer's is the most feared disease of seniors, not cancer, not heart disease, but Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
So no, definitely no. We're gonna come back and finish talking about this, because I mean, people need to know, and most of all, people need to know there's some place they can go to get help.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing, is to know that you can go somewhere to get help. Because like I said, once I went and got the help, then I knew more what to do, with my aunt and stuff when I was taking care of her. And that was crucial. And now when you mentioned about you can get a mentor, to work with you and help you. I mean, why didn't they tell me about that then when I was dealing with my aunt? Because I needed somebody to talk to. Like, okay, give me a break, help me out, just to clear my mind and stuff like that, because you want to, take care of your loved one and stuff like that. So please come back. We're going to give you another date to come back.
Thank you very much.
Really,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you both. And thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
With your wife and stuff. Thank you so much for doing that. And we are going to invite you back again. So we want to thank our audience for joining us tonight, Bishop and Sister Let and Officer Terrence. Thank you for joining. Because they have loved ones too that have the dementia too. So thank you again. I love you. Take care, Miss Vanessa. And remember, go and watch us on Saturday on Brick Arts Media and Manhattan Neighborhood Network at 2:30. Go like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube. We thank our director tonight. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.